Ngayon, ayaw mo na. Bigyan mo na. Yan. Mesosystem. Oops. Tayo po sir. Okay. Yung multi-setting interaction, family, school, neighborhood, church. Alright? Kung walang nagmamalasakit dito sa kababaihan, dito sa bata, she can go on with her own choice. Wala siyang boundaries. And the family doesn't say anything, the school doesn't say anything, the neighborhood, and the church. So, parang nag-iisa siya. That exosystem, family code, canon law, we will see that later, revised penal code, and the parents' employment. Alam niyo kung nasa abroad yung magulang, sino kaya yung surrogate parent? Ano kaya ang nangyayari dyan, no? And finally, the macro system, religion, media, school, gender, and poverty. Alright, sa microsystem, ito na po, parent, adolescent, yun nga. And you can see ubiquitous, many of the stories, in many of the stories, the young woman says, nakainom nga po kami nun. Okay, so, kung wala kayong balak na mag-premarital sex, huwag kayo iinom. Kasi kasama niya yung boyfriend mo, di ba? Pagkatapos, huwag kayo uminom. Because that is risky, no? You cannot control yourself. I'm talking to the mothers, I think. Okay, and then adolescent partner, and then these are all, part of that story. So ito na yung tinatawag kong sexual continuum, no? At every step of the way, meron niyang desisyon. Magpapaligaw ba ako o hindi? Okay? Sabi ko sa sarili ko, pag nagpaligaw ako, hindi na ako maaaring mag-madre. Baka mag-asawa na ako. Ganyan. So, it is true, no? Na ganyan. So, along the way also, may namang lumigaw. Okay. So, kaya lang hindi ko naman sinagot. Tapos nagpari din. Okay. So, ala ako may nangyari na, no? Alright. So, something happened in the lives of these young people. And, siyempre, no? Very fertile yan. Hindi naman nag-iingat. Hindi naman din, wala siyang, there's no help from centers and all that. So, nabuntis. Nako, nene-nervous siya ngayon na she doesn't know how to explain it to anybody. So, tinatago niya to until later on, lumalaki na nakikita na. Inikipit yan, no? Pero lumalaki na, so hindi niya matatago. So, anong nangyayari dyan? Magtanan na lang tayo. That's another juncture of decision-making. O, pamanhikan na lang. Kasi sabihin na natin sa manay ko, tatay ko, ganyan. O di kaya, magsama muna tayo para malaman naman natin kung compatible tayo. Yan. So, decision. Bago magpakasal. Hindi yung short, yung parang sinabing, okay, may nangyari na, kasal. Nakita nyo, ang dami niya nagtawa, no? So, ayan. All of these people are there. The pressure is there from the community that if you go out with somebody, then you must be accountable for your behavior. That means, kahit na wala pang nangyari sa'yo, sa isip ng tao, meron na. And that's why you remember we had chaperones. Yung mga matatanda dito, alam nyo, yung aalis yung mag-date, merong kasama yan. Medyo, yun yung konting parang boundary mo dyan. Alright, the next one. So, mesosystem is the parent's employment. There's got to be some anchoring, there's got to be some connectivity. Kung wala yun, wala siyang kakausapin, natatakot siya. And the influence of parental styles. Sabihin ng papa o mama, ayokong mag-boyfriend ka bago ka makatapos. Alam niyo ginawa ng isang respondent ko? Sa telepono, sabi niya, Miriam. Yung pala, boyfriend na niya yung kinakausap niya. Okay? Nagpapanggap siya. Yung klase niya, ganyan. So, nagsisinungaling din siya, hindi totoo. But it's because the parents also did not give her some leeway. I think there's got to be some give and take. Right? There is silence. And the father-daughter relationship in this case is really not healthy. Now, this is the exosystem. Labas yan ng pamilya, labas ng community. But these are some things that we have. For example, sa civil law, you cannot get married under the age of 18. Right? So, ano gagawin nila? Dadayain. Right? So, sasabihin sa mayor, 19 na po ako. Hindi naman siya. 14 pa lang siya. The canon law also says, local ordinary can in a specific case forbid a marriage. Hindi yung diretso na, Father, papakasal ko. O sige. Hindi. Interviewin mo. Intindihin mo, unawain mo yung kaso. Okay. For a time, for a grave reason, and while that reason it persists. So there is a prohibition of marriage when a girl is pregnant, even when a girl is pregnant and under 18. And the revised penal code. This is very interesting. Crimes against persons. Abortion is a crime if committed by any woman to conceal her dishonor. Yan yung kahihiyan masyado malakas. She shall suffer the penalty of prison correctional. And also a crime if committed by parents of the pregnant woman and they act with her consent for the purpose of concealing. Itatago yan kasi nakakahiya. Nakakahiya yung ginawa mo. No? Hindi ka na virgin. Anong gagawin natin ngayon? Papakasal ka. Wala kang choice. Okay. And here in the religion, church, media, self-image, Rina, are you there? Schools and sex education, gender, structure, expectations, we will go through this. Okay, itong discourse ng religion, okay? Magpakasal ka na, magpapakasal ako kasi kailangan ko ng basbas ng simbahan. Alright? Hindi tinanong kung kaya mo na ba? Meron ka bang trabaho? May trabaho siya? Hindi kailangan ko pong basbas. Pero, kailangan kong basbas, pero dapat nagkapera na ako. Dapat may pera, di ba? Okay, dapat may pera ka para isasal ka. Ang laki lang, grande kung minsan ng mga kasal, no? Or fake marriage. Ipi-fake nila yan, accommodate. I had one respondent who went to a defiant church because the Catholic Church did not want to marry them. So, parang Katoliko din, pero defiant. And then, sin marriage, you know, yung pagka nagkaroon ka ng early sex, I don't know if you have seen the movie Philomena.
Yes.
Did you see that? Ganun kasi yung isip ng mga tao. In this movie, the young women who had children because of an affair, they were punished by the sisters. They were made to work. This was in Ireland, and this was a true story. That was what the church has been thinking even up to now. Evil yan, it's sin. Okay. Pareho lang, kahit akasal ako sa simbahan o hindi ako kasal, pareho lang yan. And mas mainam naman yung kasal sa mata ng Diyos. Okay? So merong konting superiority yung kinasal talaga sa simbahan. So we learn sex from media. Sabi ng isang respondent, maliliit na bata, nakakapanood din ng mga bastos na palabas. Bold na palabas sa CD o TV. Alam mo, nirerentahan nila yan in order to just, you know, I cannot say enjoy. And media projected self-image, you know. The woman is usually weak. She doesn't say no. Yan ang projected ng media. Kulang ang babae kung walang nagkagusto. Ha? O di kaya, hinahabol siya. Pursued by society to sell products. Nagtitinda ng BMW, babae nakalagay dun sa harap ng BMW. Alright? Or sewing machine, or whatever they're trying to sell. It's a woman. Usually a woman. Okay. Oh, hinahabol. Okay. Ibig sabihin, nahabol din siya ng lalaki. Alright, the next one, please. Okay, this is a sexual, we live in a sexual culture. Ano ba yung scripting? Hindi ba sa drama mayroong script? Alam mo na kung anong mangyayari o basta mayroong sinusundan na ganyan. Okay, so in a sexual continuum, this is also a script. Alam mo na. Pag wala sinabi sa'yo, nililigawan ka, sagutin mo naman ako. Pag sinabi mong hindi, o di off na kayo, yung script mo. Okay, off na kayo. Tapos na yon. Pero, meron ka nang ulit na oo-ohan na iba. And therefore, this sexual script has a sociogenic significance. Hindi lang personal yon because it repeats itself. The practice gets structured. The sexual attraction, the desire intensified is based on a script on a romantic feeling. Di ba nakikita niyo yung mga Korean soap opera na kinikilig. Okay? Hindi lang Korean, Filipino din. So yung romantic feeling, naro-romanticize na when you love somebody, talagang you are up on the clouds, but you don't know the person has a job, hindi ka masyadong realistic, you're not thinking about it. Schools and sex education, how sex education is conducted. Sabi ng mga respondents, hindi usually pinag-uusapan ng sex education. May sex education not only about menstruation, the subject na health and nutrition. At saka walang tinuturang sex education, ayaw ko rin baka malulong ang mga kabataan. Kung minsan yung mga teacher, hindi nila alam i-handle. It's just like the parents, they don't know how to handle the situation, so they don't say anything. There's no discussion. There's no reflection. Sa school din, natatakot din ang mga teachers, no? Baka kung ano yung convey nila dun sa mga estudyante. Yeah. Alright. Now, here is the gender structure. Gender is your feminine or masculine. These are all socially constructed. Ano po ang ibig sabihin nun? Binibigyan tayo ng papel ng lipunan. O sa babae siya ang mag-aalaga ng bata, siya ang maglilinis ng bahay, siya yung pupunta sa palengke. Yun yung gender structure natin. Okay? Siya yung nililigawan. Hindi siya yung manliligaw. Nakakita na ba kayo yung babae ng ligaw sa lalaki? Pwede rin, no? O sabi nyo lang yan. Kayo, pwede kayo manligaw. Kasi parang hindi yata tama ito. Bakit ako masyadong aggressive? Masyadong assertive. Maybe nowadays there's one or two, no? But I think in general, it's the man who does it. So, gender expectations, and learn from TV nga, other media. Ito yung sinabi ng isang respondent. Araw-araw, linis, luto, alaga ng bata. Siya, pagkagaling sa trabaho, upo, tayo, kain, inom. This is general, her experience, so I cannot contest it. But how often does this happen? And I think there are some married men who also do work to help the wife. No, I'm not addressing this to them. But if this is the experience of this young woman, then I think some things need to change. Yan yung courtship attention, sinasabi ko kanina na hindi ka maaaring manligaw kung babae ka, no? It's easier said than done. Ito yung sexual language na sinasabi. Lumabas ito sa mga interview. Sabi nila, nalagyan po kasi ako. Okay? Ginamit po ako. Nalaspag po ako. Can you imagine? These are sexual language, is sexuality expressed in this particular language na Tagalog to, no? So, passive mode. Hindi ko nilaspag, hindi ko nilagyan, hindi ko ginamit. Nagamit. But that's also, ginamit po ako. Pag natangay ng aso ang buto, hindi pwedeng hindi malawayan. Ito mga it's true, you know, the respondents would say this. Now, pagkakasal na kayo, kakasal na yung mag-boyfriend, mag-shota. Pagka may nangyari na, wala ka ng presyo. There's no more bride price. Mababa ng presyo mo, di ba? Okay, so kasi, nag-early sex ka na eh. Tapos, yung courtship period, alam na, let's include the bride price arrangement. Ang pamanikan, baka wala na rin. It's already assumed that you will get married. Whether the family of the boy can give you this, and this, wala na yan. Tapos, hindi rin magtatanong, hindi niya naman kami kayang buhayin eh. Hindi rin kinukonsider yan. Basta mag-asawa kayo. Saan sila tumitira? Sa tahanan ng nanay. Usually. Advantage, of course, is a family support for the daughter. And decision is to get married is usually initiated by the woman's family. Kasi nga, sila na ngayon nawalan ng kahihiyan. No? Nawalan na sila ng to restore her honor. And to let, of course, they live with the mother of the girl, to let the new couple save to build a new house. Alright, Meninita said this also, poverty sa pinaka-matindi na rason kung bakit sila iiwas sa kahirapan ng buhay. So, this respondent says, akala ko po kasi pag kinasal ako, iigi yung buhay ko. Hindi naman pala. Okay. Akala ko maiiba yung buhay. I thought life would improve. So, in retrospect, one of the respondents said, yung mga magpapakasal, parang makatakas pa siya sa hirap ng buhay. Totoo yan, mayroong mga nagpapakasal na niya. Para lumipat siya dun sa kanyang magulang, papunta siya dun sa magulang ng lalaki. Pero, sometimes nga, akala niya, iigay, hindi naman iigay. So, these are the values, huh? Let's just think, kahihiyan, shameful kasi yan eh. Makakahiya sa tao yung ginawa mo. Hindi mo kami iniisip, kami mga magulang mo, hindi mo kami iniisip. Mag-anak, ngayon, nahihiya kami. May kakahiya ka ba? Disgrasyada ka. Disgrasyada. Wala ka ng grasya. Okay? Yung puri at dangal ng babae nawala na. Parang nawala na sa kanya. Nakuha na. Okay? Pero, meron ng mga lalaki, yung boyfriend niya siguro, pinangakuan siya, panindigan kita, okay lang, huwag ka mag-alala. Oh, ako na mananagot dyan. So, madadala si babae. Okay. This comes from the ideology of marriage. And this is part of the sexual ideology, the cult of virginity. The woman's worth equals virginity. Dito sa ideology ito. So, hindi naman daw siya talo, sabi ng isang respondent doon sa kanyang boyfriend. Boyfriend nagsabi. Kasi, virgin naman ako. Okay. So, very candid, no? Alang, they don't mean words. And it revolves around giving of virginity, concealing the loss of female chastity. So, ideolohiya, kung walang rason yan, basta sinasabi lang, it tries to legitimate the social order. And the virginity of the woman becomes a symbolic capital of that woman in the family itself. Okay. So, what happens pag nag-premarital sex? Marriage saves the family from dishonor. Or, abortion naman ang pupuntahan nila. Which is probably, I don't know, it's worse. It's worse option for the young female to conceal the loss of her virginity. Always to conceal the kahihiyan. Okay. Lalo na kung hindi ito ginawa ng maayos, I think that the woman will suffer. Okay, gawan natin ng paraan yan. Okay, para magawan ng paraan. And then also yung ideology and ritual. They might do it in your house, they might do it someplace else, not in the church. Yung mga ganyan na in structure and out of structure, ginagawan ng paraan kung paano maiaalis yung kahihiyan. Okay. So, in our Christian sexual ethics, there is a persistent connection between sin and sexuality, evil and sexuality. Kasalanan yan, anak. Kailangan mangumpisal ka o magpakasal ka. Mali ang ginawa mo. Itama natin. Ang tama, pakasal. Totoo ba yun? Tama ba yun? Okay. Pangit yung ginawa mo, anak, hindi mo kami inisip. Pagandahin natin, papabongga siya ng kasal. Masama yung ginawa mo. Hindi. Inisip tayo ng paraan, Yun yung sinasabi na, kahit na nga ba may premarital sex na yun, gusto mo na mag-asawa yung anak mo, iisip ka ng paraan, magkakautang-utang ka para ipakasal siya, para hindi ka, dahil sa kahihiyan. Okay. I did a study here. about the virginity, you know, in the times of the Catholic, the Spaniards, and they came here. There were issues of chastity. Kasi tayo, mas free tayo noon before the Spaniards came. And they were the ones who put all of these, like, yung virginity, yung issues of chastity and morality, because of the church also. And so, yung si Maria Clara, hindi ba, yung birhen siya. And then, the opposite of the birhen is the whore. And she is the puta. So, there is a binary distinction between the good woman and the bad woman. And the reflexive critique. Pag nangyari na po yung premarital sex, naman nangyari na, mag-usap, pag-usapan ng maayos, tingnan natin kung ano ang mga different options. Kasi kung agad-agad na lulundag ka dun sa, sa kasal, marami tayong mabilis eh. Okay? And the sense of agency in the young woman is lost. Wala na siya. And then we're also oppressing her if we are the parent or the counselor or whatever, the mentor. At tayo nang nag-decide para sa kanya. Wala siya sa equation. Hindi siya tinanong. Kasi ako, yung kahihiyan ko, ang iniisip ko. Hindi yung kinabukasan niya. So here, we're talking about two key events. Okay, she gets involved in a premarital sex, a teenage sex. And then the jumping, the next step would be kasal, no? Pero ang sinasabi natin dito, siguro hindi yun ang susunod na step. Kailangan meron pang iba. So ito, sinasabi natin, parental connectivity is important. Your barkada, look at the barkada of your children. The media projected self-image. Pwede i-critique yun. Kung parati kayo nanonood sa TV, pakialaman nyo kung ano yung iniisip ng anak o ng estudyante. Ano ba nakikita niya dun sa TV? And gender roles. Parental connectivity, we've said that already. I think and then influences for the practice of teenage marriage. Ito po yung in certain ways, I have already touched them. Okay. Next one. Okay. Okay, adolescent marriage invokes kahihiyan, shame. Yes. Alright. So we need to delve into that, to go deeper into what does it mean. Kasi kung kahihiyan lang, yun na nga yun, very automatic kasi yung response na yun. Mag-asawa ka, kasi kahihiyan namin ang apektado dyan. So, we need to have a reflexive critique to address the largely unconscious and automatic aspect of the kaugalian. And we need to look at developing the strong sense of agency in the young person. I'm recommending education. Okay. Number 2, advocacy. Marami yan, women's groups, churches, government organizations, women, moral theologians. Because they need to look at Christian sexual ethics. And through research. Ito po yung sinasabi ko na sana magkaroon ng research on male sexuality. Please. And then to replicate this research in urban settings. I did something on this one also, interviews in Mandaluyong. Pero hindi pa po tapos yung aking findings. Replicate this research in urban settings and to develop guidelines for sexual ethics based on a positive sense of sexuality. Hindi po ng negative ang sexuality. Okay. So 5 years later, bumalik po ako. I usually go there like regularly. But 5 years later, I also asked them, ano nga nangyari sa inyo? Ay, ang fertility rate po, dumoble. Dumoble siya. Okay? Tapos, ang change of status, yung mga, some single, not all, 1 or 2 single women, they got married. Parang yun lang ang pagtutuunan ng buhay niya, nagkasawa na rin siya. Is life better or worse? For many of them, it was better, but there were others who also said it was worse. So it wasn't a good decision. And a parent-adolescent relationships, some of them got better, even with the in-laws. Aspirations, this would be some of our aspirations also. Improve life, generate income, adequate housing, good health, give back to family. This, nagulat ako dito to grow spiritually. Sister, bigyan niyo naman ako ng rosaryo, magdadasal ako, ganyan. Tumatawag na sila sa Diyos. And then give back to community. Meron silang sense of participation in the community. So, our conclusion is this. I think we need to change in attitude towards adolescent marriage as a solution, the only solution to early sex and pregnancy. Second, I think we need to change from an automatic culture-driven response to may nangyari na or premarital sex to a reflective and reflexive thinking leading to a mature response. Give it time. Talk about it with the young person. And then we also need to change on levels of systems of personal and collective life. Nakita niyo yung nested ecological framework. Look at all of that and see what the values that are involved there. I think there are some values that may help us to positively address this issue. Alright, so nakita ko dyan, meron namang pagbabago. You know, nagtyaga-tyaga din ako para noon I'm present with their questions or just to be familiar with the family of the young women. And they now say, oh nga pala sister, hindi kasi nga kami hindi ako naghintay dun sa tamang edad. Okay. Meron na sila noon, in love sila, yung sinasabi nila, hindi nila alam yung tamang edad. Fresh look at Christian sexual ethics. This cosmic anthropological perspective, we look at sexuality and spirituality because they're very closely linked. Okay? And in this universe story, the new universe story, there's one power, one of the 10 powers of the universe. It's called adoration. Na-attract ka sa tao. Okay. So yun, na-attract yung dalawang teenagers sa isa't isa. It is not wrong. But we need to channel that energy, that love, that attraction to something positive. Finally, I just want to end this with a quotation from Mary Nice, that the change of the status quo, which is the way we look at premarital sex, is the starting point for scientific quest. And that the researchers, us, cannot but change when we do this, also in the process, both as human beings and as scholars. Actually, yun na nga, yung aking attitude, it became much more compassionate, much more broad, much more listening, you know, hindi na judgmental. And finally, this is very important for our country, that the consequence of high adolescent fertility not only threatens the health of the young person, but also the not of the country and its economy as well. So national ang magiging epekto. Ito kung hindi natin tutulungan. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Didi, for a most interesting, revealing, compelling book that you have written. We are confident that your book will be of great help to parents, to mentors, to educators and counselors, as well as young people for their better understanding of the issue of teenage sex and marriage. This afternoon, we have also invited a varied mix of reactors so that the issue of teenage sex and marriage can be better understood and presented from different perspectives. May I call on our 4 reactors to come on stage and to take their seats on the couch. May we call on Ms. Rosana Monica Marabut, Ms. Alisa Bianca Encarnacion, Miss Edna Cinco, and Miss Erica Elaine Santos. Please take a seat. Our first reactor this afternoon is Miss Maria Rosana Monica Marabut. She has been in the counseling field for 15 years and has worked extensively with pre-adolescent and adolescent girls. She was a guidance counselor for the Immaculate Conception Academy for 7 years and a guidance supervisor at Miriam College High School for another 7 years. Currently, she heads the Middle School Guidance Office. Ms. Marabut.
Hello. Good afternoon to everyone. As I was browsing through the book of Sister Teresa, it made me realize that since these are actual stories, it's really happening, and to actually read through some of the stories, I think for us educators and parents here, we need to re-examine how do we prepare the young people to make good decisions, the right decisions, when they are faced or they are in situations where they are tempted to explore their sexuality, because it's very natural at their age for tweens and teens. They're curious about sex. So since in our culture, we don't usually ask our parents because it's awkward to ask them, and I guess most parents are also awkward to open the topic with their children. So what do? Because of information technology just around, they will Google, they will look through the net. Well, they will get all the information they can, which will answer their questions, but the problem is many of the things we see on the net will not emphasize on the values that they need to know, which is part of sexuality. If I will be asked what is the right age for us to educate children about sex and sexuality, I think the ages before puberty, especially for girls, maybe around 9 years old to 12 years old. If we do it earlier, before 9 years old, it might be, well, we might preempt them because they might not be ready. But if it's too late, it might be futile already because they've already gotten the answers from elsewhere. And maybe just for the last part, I think Sister Teresa emphasized enough that marriage shouldn't be an option for early pregnancy because it will bring about a whole new set of problems. So hopefully, of course, in school, we can only do so much. We need the parents, the home to help us in guiding our students to make the right decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next reactor is Alisa Bianca Encarnacion, a graduating student of Miriam College High School. Alisa is an active member of the school's debate team and has represented the school in various debate competitions. She is admired by her peers for her diligence and leadership skills. She actively joins class and group discussions to express her opinions on different issues. Alisa, you have the floor.
Hello. Hi. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm honestly very thankful that I'm here right now because as I was stated there earlier, I was listening and I really learned a lot from all of the speakers, and I realized that there really is a need for these teenage mothers to, be acknowledged and for them to be protected, especially because what they're going through is something very difficult and something it's life-changing, and it's time for us to necessarily take a step so that we can help them and others who might be involved. I'm very thankful for Sister Teresa who wrote this book, because I genuinely feel that we need to start acknowledging that teenage pregnancy does exist, that it is a reality, that it can happen to anyone, not just these women. It can also happen to, teenage students here in the urban areas, etc. And I'm really thankful that we have this book so that it can help the reader understand what these women really go through, what are the extents and the consequences of their actions. And that's something that we all need to acknowledge right now. Another thing, and a very important thing I also realized when we were, today, just now, is the need for these women, for these teenage mothers to be supported. I've encountered a lot of feminists in the Miriam College High School, and we have many different ideas about women empowerment and the value of a woman. And today really strengthened my belief that a woman's dignity is not lessened simply because she is a teenage mother. Just because you are married at this young age, just because you are pregnant, doesn't mean you are less dignified as a person, and doesn't mean you are worth any less than anyone else. And I think it's time we change that mentality. It honestly hurts me to hear that there are parents who are ashamed of their children simply because they made this choice. I think it's time we take a brave step forward to change that mentality so that these women will no longer have to go through that stigma, so that they can deal with the situation better in the future. So with that, thank you.
Great, thank you, Alisa. Our next actor is a mother from the Antubo, a partner community of Miriam College. She is a leader in her community and works part-time as a health worker in her barangay. She was the president of the Community Homeowners Association and is now a member of its board of directors. Ms. Edna joins us today to share her experiences and her views as a mother who has seen her teenage daughter through pregnancy and birth. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Edna Cinco.
Magandang hapon po sa inyo lahat. Maraming salamat, at meron din pala itong ganitong mga bagay na para sa problema ng katulad sa amin sa komunidad ng yung sa urban core. Ito po ng pangyayari ng aking anak po ay 2006 pa po ito. Ito po ay nangyari sunod-sunod na taon, 3 taon po. Hindi. Ayaw ko sana ito napabayag ko na talaga tinamdam ko po ito. Sabi ko nga kay sister, ayaw ko sana pero gusto ko makatulong. Dahil iniiyak ko talaga ito noon pa. Una-una po, 2004, nag-graduate siya sa grade 6. Nag-aaral siya 2005, first year. Nung second year po, hindi siya nagtapos. Dahil nauna lang nagbarkada na. Minsan hindi na uwi, pumapasok, hindi uuwi. Tumigil siya ng pagpasok. Sunod na taon, niyaral namin ulit sa Balara High School yan. Hindi pa rin siya nagtuloy, kundi tumigil pa rin, 2 taon na. Ibig sabihin, araw-gabi ang paghahanap sa kanya. Hindi rin kami tumitigil mag-asawa maghanap sa kanya. Hanggang sa tumigil siya, pinagtigil namin, dahil nanay, di na umuwi.
Nung huli, binigyan namin siya ng pagkakataon dahil nahanap din na naman namin siya, umuwi siya. Pinaaral namin siya sa ibang school bago magbago. Ganun pa rin po ang ginawa. Pinaaral namin sa Dunkintin dyan sa May Tubaw. Ganun din po, lalong lumalang po ang kanyang ginawa. Hindi yung umuwi. Binigyan namin lahat ng kanyang gusto. Yung pala hindi pumapasok. Hanggang sa ganun, ginawa na, lalong napalala siya dahil sino mga kasama niya, mayroon siyang kasama mga grupo na kung tawagin kuya-kuya, mayroon siyang mga barkada. Hindi yan napupunan ng ating gobyerno. Ganun na ganun kanilang ginagawa gabi-gabi. Nandiyan kami mag-asawa naghahanap. Araw-gabi, hinahanap namin yan. Hanggang sa makalaon-laon ng 3 taon, hanggang maabot na 4 na taon. Nalaman na lang namin nasa kabanatuan na naman siya. Iyan nalaman, nagsabi lang sa amin yung aming kapitbahay na nandun, nadala na siya sa kabanatuan para magtrabaho doon. Yung pala ay papagtrabaho sa bed house doon sa kabanatuan. Nakailang buwan sila doon. Nalaman namin, ayun, pumunta na ako sa ibang, sa SSTD. Para lang yung ginagawa ng mga tao nila dahil hindi rin namin kilala. Hindi nila sinasabi kung sino ang kasama. Para kami, kumbaga kasi, siyempre araw-araw gano'n kami trabaho din. Ang asawa ko nagtatrabaho sa Nawasa. Ako naman si HW. Ginagamparan namin ang araw-gabi maghanap sa kanya kahit kami may trabaho. Pero kami pa rin ang ginagawa niya. Kumbaga sumuko na ako. Kung nandun siya sa kabanatuan, di ko alam kung nag-umaksyon itong SSTD dahil sinabi ko na ang anak ko ay nasa kabanatuan, sinama nung isang grupo na para doon magtrabaho. Di ko alam kung ginawa nila yun. Katagal-tagalan nalaman ko na lang may balita ang sabi na yung anak ko ay hindi natanggap dahil bata pa, 13 years old yun. Bata pa, hindi siya tinanggap. Anong ginawa? Dahil hindi naman siya tinanggap sa bed house. Siya ay nangamuhan muna para makabalik. Nung mga tagal na, dahil siyempre labot muna bago siya makauwi. Yun lang sabi, nang makauwi na, pero na naman nagsabi sa amin, sunduin namin sa terminal. Uuwi na ang anak ko at saka yung kasama. Nung dumating mga madudungis silang dalawa. Sinundo namin ng madaling araw kami mag-asawa na naman sa terminal. Di umuwi. Gano'n na naman po ginawa. Kahit may aksyon kami ginagawa sa kanya, hindi rin niya kami pinapakinggan. Sukong-suko na talaga ako. Dahil inayos na namin, umuwi na. Kumbaga binibigyan namin siya ng, para ba, hindi naman namin siya sinasaktan. Yung pangaral bilang magulang, hindi rin niya iniintindi yung mga sinasabi namin. Palibasa siguro, hindi namin natututukan yun. Dahil nagtatrabaho ako at saka yung tatay niya, gabi lang kami nakikita. Ibig sabihin, nung dumating siya naman dito, gano'n na naman ginawa mga 2008 na yun. Gano'n pa rin, pumupunta sa kaibigan, hanggang sa minsan hinahap. Ayan na naman, bumalik na naman kami kahanap-hanap araw-gabi. Nagtatricycle kami, pupunta ng Pilcoa, pupunta sa ibang area, para lang namin mahanap siya, hindi talaga namin makita. Kasi pag nakita naman namin, tumatakbo. Hinalayasan lang kami. Minsan nandun sila sa yung malaking yung abusan ng tubig, yung malaking yung ano ba yun, nandun sila pumapasok dyan. Nakita talaga namin, nagtatakbuhan pag pinunta namin. Hindi namin mahawi yung lalakad nila, mabibilis sila tumakbo. Hanggang sa isang araw po, ito na naman po, nahuli na silang lahat dahil nakita na sila ng Quezon City sa ating gobyerno na nag-uupukan na doon sa isang bahay na may kuya-kuya, nandun na sila. Ayun, nahuli sila. Nahuli lahat yung bata, pati yung kanilang kuya-kuya, inimbestigahan din, at nakulong. Yun sila naman, ikinulong sila doon sa rehabilitation center, doon sa may tapat ng Q-Mart, yung tawagin ay RAC, doon sila. Ito na naman po, dumating nga yung balita na naman yan, na nakulong sila. Sabi ko, ay, salamat, nagpasalamat talaga ako kasi siguro yun na makakabigay solusyon sa akin para siya tumigil doon sa nakulong siya doon. Pati yung kanyang mga kasama, kasi may edad na, mga 21, siya ano na yun, 15 years old na yun, 16, ganun. Ganun na taon yung aming inikot, yung pinaghirapan para sa aking anak. Pero ano pa man, hindi rin kami nagkulang sa kanya dahil araw-gabi namin siya hinahanap. Ang pangaral na binibigay namin, hindi niya sinusunod. Dahil ako lang din naman ang nagsasalita, hindi yung tatay. Wala, puro nanay lang pinapabay para magsalita para sa anak. So ako lang nagsasalita, ang aking asawa ay nag-aantay kung ano ang aking desisyon. Hanggang sa ganun na dumating siya, pinabayaan ko muna siya dun sa RAC. Pinabayaan ko para siya munang makaramdam ano ba ang kanya mararamdaman na siya'y nakakulong dun sa RAC. Nung ako'y dumalaw dun sa kanya, gusto na niya umuwi. Sabi ko, anak, dyan ka na lang muna, magpahinga ka muna dyan. Nagpahinga siya hanggang sa kalahating buwan. Maganda naman din kasi meron din silang disiplina doon, binibigyan sila, nagbabible sila. Kumbaga, nakabawas-bawas siya ng anong niya doon, yung kanyang mga pagkukulang. Hanggang sa ito, pinababas uli siya. Inasikaso din namin, pinapirma siya, kinaunsiling kami dalawa. Pati ang asawa ko, lumabas. Pinapag-aral namin po siya. Pinapag-aral namin siya, 2nd year, 3rd year, 4th year. Sawa ng Diyos na tapos ngayon. Tapos nag-college siya po. Opo. Nag-college siya. Natapos na rin ng college. Nakatapos din siya ng college. Pero itong napakasakit. Meron pala siyang ginadala. Mag-graduate na lang siya by 2013, March. Nakukuntis pala. November po. November. Kaya pala masikita ang tiyan. Bigyan lang namin sa doktor. Akala namin tiyan lang. Nagtatakan sa ospital. Bakit hindi tinataglan ng gamot? Malakas na ng gamot ang aming binibigay. Baka buntis siya. Sabi ko, hindi ho yan buntis, ma'am. Hindi. Ayun pala. Nalaman na namin noong January. Buntis pala. Diyos ko, graduate siya sa college po. Buntis siya po. Bilang magulang po, naapektuhan talagang aming pamilya doon sa ginawa ng aking anak, pero hindi ko siya pinabayaan. Dumating na ako'y gusto ng sumuko. Pinarinig ako ng isang boses, siguro, yung isang boses na galing sa likod na hindi ko alam kung sino. Anak, sabi niya, huwag kang susuko, gumawa ka. Dahil talagang gusto ko na sumuko doon sa kahanap dahil pagod na po ako. Araw-gabi, naghahanap sa kanya, hindi naman makita, hindi na kami makatulog. Alas 12 na una kami nagraraw ng Quezon City para namin siya. Mas malaking epekto para sa pamilya ko. Ano ang ginawa namin sa kanya? Siguro, masasabi ko sa kanya na hindi namin siya pinabayaan. Bilang anak, hindi namin siya pinabayaan. Kahit ganun siya, hindi namin siya pinabayaan hanggang ngayon. So ngayon nung mga anak ko siya, namatay ang bata dahil doon siguro sa ginawa namin na pinainom ng gamot kung ano yung injection, namatay po ang bata. August 2013, namatay ang bata. Paglabas, nahirapan humiya yung bata. So namatay yung bata. yung lalaki na yun, hindi ko alam kung yun ang kasama, yun ang kanyang kabarkada doon, kung kasama nila sa barkada, na yung asawa niya ngayon. Nandun siya ngayon sa lalaki, hindi namin kinuha. Bilang mga magulang, masasabi ko lang po, ay wag ko kung tama ang ginawa ko. Hindi naman ako makapagsabi na tama, kung tama o mali, basta ginawa ko ang aking magagawa para bilang magulang para sa aking anak, na para maiwasan doon sa siya'y mamatay, siya'y mabuntis, ganun din naman pala. Pero hindi ako sumuko. Mga anak, huwag kayong gagaya sa anak ko. Sana mahalin yung inyong mga magulang. Kung kayo pinapag-aral, mag-aral kayo ng mabuti. Mahalin yung inyong mga magulang habang kayo pinapag-aral. Maraming salamat.
Maraming pong salamat, Ms. Edna, sa inyong paglalahad at sa pagdalo sa hapon ito. Our last reactor is an alumna of Miriam College. She graduated last March 2014 with a psychology degree. She currently works as an administrative assistant for customer marketing at GlaxoSmithKline. Erica was barely out of college when she gave birth and became a mother. But with the caring and loving support of her family and of Miriam College, she carried on with her studies and became one of the student delegates who attended the undergraduate psychology conference at Stanford University in the United States, where she presented her undergraduate thesis. Thank you, Erica, for taking time off from work to be with us this afternoon. Everyone, Erica, the infanta.
Hi, good afternoon po. I wasn't really expecting that I will be in front of this great crowd. But then when Miss Jelay called me last weekend, we're a bit close and yeah, for sure. So, I'm a mother. My son is currently in his weekender in MCIS in Marikina. And for me, my experiences as I grow, like if I share it with others, I didn't really makita yung sarili ko na kinakaawaan ako ng tao. Never in my life that I share with people para lang magbigay sila ng piti sa akin. Because for me, as a teenage mom, I did not really made it as a hindrance for me to grow as an individual. But I made it a point that I already did this. Like, even if other people or family friends take it like it's a mistake that like what Sister Teresa have told, like yung mga sinasabi na kire ka kasi, malandi ka kasi, ganyan. It's true. Like, we've been past that. Pero kasi kung nasa sarili natin, like what I've been telling my friends and also what I've been telling their sisters and their other friends, na hindi madali na mabuntis ang isang tao, na hindi din madali na walang suporta ng pamilya. Kasi kapag walang suporta yung pamilya mo, how can you be in this position? Like for me, I'm very thankful that I have my parents. Like, I've been staying in this institution, like I just graduated last March with a degree in BS Psychology. Then after I graduated, I still went to the US to present my thesis. And it's just that it's a whirlwind of experiences that also, I'm also thankful na hindi nila ako pinakasal. Kasi madaming magulang ang nagsasabi sa magulang ko na kailangan ipakasal mo yan kasi dignidad ng pamilya mo yan. I mean, kilala din yung guide and so forth. But for my parents, hindi. I mean, nadapa na siya once. Pero mas maganda na tulungan mo siya makabangon, hindi mas lalo mo siyang ilalagay dyan sa pwesto na yan na hindi ka sigurado kasi bata pa siya. I got pregnant when I was 18. I just transferred from USC here to Miriam College to get another degree. then I'm very thankful for Miriam for still accepting me and still letting me continue what I wanted to do, like for my education, because it is not only for myself, it is also for my son. As of the date, I'm not really related anymore with my father's son, my son's father. Sorry. And I'm the one providing for my son. Never did I get any financial support. Sabihin na nilang parang katangahan yan, hindi ka kumukuha ng pera sa tatay ng anak mo. Pero po kasi, nabigyan ko na ng problema yung magulang ko eh. Ayaw nila din sa tatay ng anak ko. Mas mabuting ako na lang. I mean, kaya ako nag-work, kaya ako nag-pursue, and with the grace and glory of God and with the people around me, especially my professors like Dr. Vicky Apuan, who really helped me to not just be a professor for me, but also a mother for me. That in order for me to grow as an individual, in order for me to pursue my other extracurricular activities, like for instance, when I was in college in SAIC, I also helped other volunteers in Villamor Air Base for the Yolanda victims, and there are mothers there who don't even know what to do. But for me, as a young mom, yung passion kasi ng pagiging nanay mo, it's in there. And even if I'm young, and even if na parang sinasabi nila ang aga mo lumandi, it's true. It's really true. It really hurts me. Like sometimes I even cry about it, but mas thankful ako nasan ako ngayon kasi it's not a hindrance, and I did it. I did it with all my heart. It's 100%, not without the father, not without any, but with my family and friends, and what I have right now, what my experience tells me. I think I've been there, I'm going there, and I'm achieving more.
Okay. Thank you to our panel of reactors for bravely sharing your stories with us this afternoon. At this point, we shall now call on Professor Gigi Francisco, the Senior Program Coordinator of WOG-E. She is currently the General Coordinator of Development Alternatives for a New Era, or DAWN, a network of feminist scholars, researchers, and activists from the Economic South, working for economic and gender justice and sustainable and democratic development. The former chair of International Studies Department, Professor Gigi continues to be a tireless advocate of women's rights. Professor Gigi.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me thank Sister TD and the 10 young women companions. To the women, thank you for open-heartedly sharing with us your stories of trials, but also of hope. We gain from your strength as your story resonates with us, older women, and many more young adolescent women. To Sister TD, thank you for weaving the women's stories with a golden yarn of commitment and compassion. As a true Maryknoll missionary, will be careful, respectful, and sensitive to the women's predicaments. A Maryknoll missionary will go where few others dare to cross, and this you have admirably embarked in your dissertation. Very deep in the pages are two quotes which Sister TD had every intention to want us to read and reflect on. The first is from Vatican II, which redefined the purpose of marriage as unitive rather than procreative, emphasizing the well-being of the spouses, partnerships, and deepening relationships rather than only on the reproductive imperative. This is true reproductive choice or reproductive rights. The second is from Margaret Farley, author of Just Love, a framework for Christian sexual ethics, who asserted that we must have new understandings of human sexuality and sexual relations, where respect for persons is both an obligating and a liberating call, where a critique of the institutions of monogamous marriage, and where other contemporary patterns of relationships will facilitate attempts to reconstruct sexual theory and meaning for human life. In full humility and simplicity, Sister T.D. had given us a treasure of stories, and we should be grateful for this. I end with her words, "As a woman religious, I am convinced that we need a fresh look at Christian sexual ethics with a view for appropriating it for our times. Long tradition has associated sex and sexuality to being negative and dirty, and we need to develop its positive sense." She continues, "I would like to think that through the various experiments which adolescents try nowadays, the variations of human relationships would yield even better practices. Congratulations to your research, Sister T.D., and let us celebrate your degree. Mabuhay kayong lahat." Thank you.
Thank you, Gigi. This ends our meaningful symposium for this afternoon. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We hope that the views, the stories, and the experiences shared by our guests and panelists, and the insights from the book of Sister Teresa Dagdag this afternoon has been uplifting and enriching for all of us. Thank you and have a good day, everyone. Please join us to the book signing and the merienda at Our Lady's Court. That's the better part of the program. Thank you. So we'll see you all at the Ladies' Court for the book signing of the great author, Sister T.D.